Okay, well, we'll get on our way here. So thank you and welcome everyone to the Modern Bereavement Care for Families webinar. We'll be speaking today about the CuddleBlanket. Again, thank you for taking the time to join us, whether you are from a hospital, hospice, funeral home, or you work as a death doula. Your roles are crucial to the sacred work of end-of-life care. Today, we are exploring how the CuddleBlanket offers the gift of time and how that time can be transformative, not only for families, but for your work as professionals. My name is Jessica Fleming. I'm the Business Development Executive in Canada for Flexmort, and I'm co-presenting with Danielle Frank, Business Development Executive in the US. I myself joined Flexmort about a year ago. My experience was that I used one of Flexmort's products, the Cuddle Cot, when I lost my infant son. It's similarly a cooling device. I have worked within Canada to donate those cooling devices to hospitals around the country, and through my work, developed a close relationship with the company and decided to join after I was asked back in August of 2024. So it's been a wonderful year working with Flexmort and spreading the word about cuddle cots and cuddle blankets alike. Danielle, I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, so as Jessica mentioned, I'm Danielle Frank. I'm the Business Development Executive of the US. I joined the company a little over a year ago as well. I was able to use the Cuddle Cot back in 2016 when I lost my son, so that's how I became familiar with the company. Definitely on board with their mission of providing bereavement support in addition to the cooling products. So happy to be supporting the US here and sharing about the Cuddle Cot, the CuddleBlanket, and some of our other products.
Thank you, Danielle. So we'll be hearing from both Danielle and I as we move through the presentation. Another thing to note is that we are presenting to all of North America, so we're including both Canada and US. It's important to keep in mind that not all scenarios may be applicable for your specific country. And we also have Will Charles on the call. He is with the UK team, and he will be monitoring the chat and Q&A. So please feel free to ask any questions during the call via Q&A, and we will have time at the end for additional questions as well. Right, so as we mentioned, CuddleBlanket is a product of Flexmort. So Flexmort's role in mortuary solutions and individual cooling across the globe includes several different products. As Danielle and I both mentioned, the Cuddle Cot is used for cooling infants who are stillborn or past into infancy. It's similar to the CuddleBlanket. However, it is obviously in bassinet form, and there's a smaller cooling pad for use in NICUs and L&D. The Air Cool is a portable mortuary used for disasters, funeral home overflow, and other mass cooling needs. Again, there's a picture of that up in the corner. It looks like the blue box, so that's for a more dignified and organized temporary solution for cooling in various scenarios. And the CAD seal is a hermetically sealed foil for sealing deceased bodies. All of these products are part of the Flexmort family and are available on our website. For more information, you can certainly reach out to Danielle, myself, or the info email at Flexmort. But just to give you a general idea of sort of the way that Flexmort as a company is in the mortuary and bereavement care space. Those are some of our other product lineups. So in today's session, I want to help to give you an intro and explain what this session will entail and what you can expect to take away. So we'll begin with a brief intro to the CuddleBlanket, which is a portable, refrigerant-free body cooling device that can be used in any bed. The CuddleBlanket can even be used with the personal bedding of one's own for a discreet look and a higher level of personalized care. Danielle and I will go through how the CuddleBlanket is designed to provide the gift of time in any care setting. And we will also discuss the recent shift in bereavement care and how the CuddleBlanket can be incorporated. As a simple, powerful tool that supports families and providers through portable, non-invasive body cooling, it empowers families to say goodbye on their own time and gives care professionals the ability that they need to support them compassionately. More specifically, you will learn how the cuddle blanket works, where it can be used, such as hospitals, hospice, funeral homes, and personal homes, how it aligns with modern green and spiritual values, how it integrates, or how you can integrate it practically, I'm sorry, and how specifically for funeral homes and death doulas, it can open new service opportunities and profit avenues. So, cooling offers more than just preservation. It's about dignity, time, and personalization. It slows natural changes and helps to maintain the physical appearance of the deceased in a respectful and discreet manner, which can be comforting for families. Using the blanket extends the window for visitation and gives distant relatives time to arrive and say goodbye. The cuddle blanket is safe and practical for transport. It's simple to move between facilities or can even be brought to the home of the deceased or loved one. Most importantly, it supports more meaningful grieving, and gives space for rituals, silence, touch, and closure on the family's own timeline. By offering these benefits, you empower families to create a farewell that truly reflects the love and connection. So, what is a cuddle blanket? It's a portable system, as mentioned, that is placed over the deceased using a flexible cooling pad. So, there's no need to refrigerate the whole room or use embalming chemicals, as the pad is connected to a compact chiller unit that circulates cooled water through the pad using thermoelectric cooling rather than the traditional refrigeration. Thermoelectric technology operates quietly and efficiently without the need for ice, dry ice, or fans. So families are able to hold, sit beside, and spend time with their loved ones in a peaceful manner in a familiar setting, in such as a hospital room, again, hospice house, funeral home, chapel, or at their own homes. And because the cuddle blanket is designed as as an alternative to traditional methods of cooling. So one of the benefits of the cuddle blanket is that it can be reused rather than recurring costs of purchasing and buying ice packs or dry ice, which often need to be refreshed.
So how does the cuddle blanket work? The soft, flexible cooling pad is placed directly over the body of the deceased. There's distilled water that flows through the cooling unit into the cooling pad that provides the cooling technology. The insulated blanket is then either placed inside a duvet or it can be covered with a personal blanket, a quilt, or some other family heirloom that the family would like to keep close to the person's body. Once the cooling pad and the blanket are tucked around the body, the active cooling begins. And this allows time for the family to say goodbye in private without feeling rushed. The unit's quiet and it's a more dignified way of cooling rather than having to replace dry ice or use ice packs. So offering families time after loss is incredibly important. Not only does it allow the opportunity to say goodbye without feeling rushed, it also allows time for family and loved ones who live out of town, the time to come in and to say goodbye. It helps with acceptance and grieving, extends the time with the deceased, and that can ease denial and support the early stages of grief in a more supported environment. The additional time can also allow loved ones to slow down, start to process the death, and start to make arrangements. By having the choice and flexibility and compassion, it's something that families are expecting in today's bereavement care. So we have lots of testimonials on our website from families who have had the opportunity to use the cuddle blanket. This one talks about mom Laura, who was able to use the cuddle blanket with her son Harris. She just shares about, not being able to use the cuddle blanket would have been something that she couldn't have dreamed. She was able to sing to him, hold his hand, and take in every detail. So Harris's mom treasures the time that she had with him because of the cuddle blanket. Recent clinical research has shown the importance of offering cooling, and we can put a link to this in the chat. We'll also send it out in our email. So this is a study that examined the impact of after-death cooling on children's hospices across the UK. So the researchers interviewed 23 families who were able to spend extended time with their child after death. They showed that this helped foster bonding, memory making, and supported them during a critical period of grief. So researchers conducted in-depth interviews with the parents, and they employed narrative and thematic analysis informed by various grief theories. All of the parents expressed the time they spent using the cuddle blanket was invaluable. It helped ease the shock of separation, provided them with a sense of control, and it supported the grieving process. All of this encouraged the creation of lasting memories and offered comfort in a compassionate and peaceful environment. None of the families regretted using the cooling blanket, and in recalling time, many parents actually noted somewhat of a positive experience within such a time of anguish. One father commented, "In a very emotional time, it was as good as it could have been, really. It's the worst time of your life. It makes the worst time of your life as good as it could be." So again, we can send this in an email to share this research paper with you guys. There's a growing desire among modern families for non-invasive natural death care. Many of families are seeking to avoid chemicals and prefer alternatives to traditional embalming. The approach of the cuddle blanket allows families the choice of how, when, and where they can say goodbye to their loved one. And again, this fosters a more personal and meaningful farewell. It's essential for families to feel supported during such a difficult time rather than feeling rushed through the process. So offering innovative services such as body cooling with the cuddle blanket reflects a commitment to a high standard of care and ensures that families can honor their loved one compassionately and respectfully. In the UK, the cuddle blanket is currently used. There's around 800 cuddle blankets in various pediatric hospices, adult hospices, and funeral homes. And we have Becky Davis, who is a community nurse in the UK. She's worked with many parents who have lost a child on hospice, palliative care, or unexpectedly. Becky's going to talk a little bit about the cuddle blanket from her experience of supporting families through loss. So welcome, Becky. I'm going to share you on here. 1 second. Okay,
Hello.
sorry.
Can
Okay,
you hear
hi.
me okay?
Yes, we
Yep.
can hear you. Thank you for joining us. If you want to go ahead and share a little bit about your experience with the cuddle blanket and the work that you do there in the UK.
Okay, no problem. As Danielle said, I'm a children's nurse. I work predominantly in the community and have done for many, many years. And that's where I've had experience of using cuddle blankets to support children who have died, whose parents have wanted them to remain at home, or if they've wanted to bring them home after they've died in hospital or in a children's hospice. And so my role is to support that family through that process, to help them set up the cuddle blanket, get their son or daughter sort of settled into their bed at home, and then just to be that point of contact whilst they spend time at home with them. And certainly the families that I've helped to support over the years, some families have only chosen to do that for 1 or 2 days or even a few hours, and other families it's been a few more days. What we usually try and do is have a funeral director locally on board with supporting us, just to help with managing any changes to the child's body that we might see. And it's really important to prepare the family for those changes that they might see. But it's just a really practical, easy, portable way of being able to support children and support families to keep their child at home. I think it's great. One other time we've used it is I worked in a children's hospice for a few years, and although we had a special bedroom with an air conditioning unit in the room, if children were there and families wanted to sit with them, they used to have to sit with their coats and hats on, and it could be quite chilly. And so actually we would use the cuddle blankets in that bedroom as well, so it gave them that private space. But it meant that we didn't have to sort of keep the whole room really cold, which was a much nicer way of making it feel comfortable for the whole family, rather than sitting there with their hats on. just trying to think. Danielle, can you think of any questions you would ask me that I could answer?
So, I think, thank you for sharing that. I think just in a practical setting, how do you find, are you preparing families ahead of time to know about the CuddleBlanket, or how does that kind of get introduced to the
Yeah,
family?
I mean, one of the things that we have in the UK is we try really hard to complete advanced care plans with children and families once we know they're palliative, once we know they will be dying at some point. And part of that conversation is talking about what the options are once their child has died as to where they want their child to be. Obviously, we try and have these conversations with children and young people too, if that feels appropriate for the family. But yeah, so it's capturing those wishes, finding out where they would like to be. And sometimes families can't go there, they just can't think about those decisions until after their child has died. But yeah, it's a piece of equipment that we have. As I say, I work in a children's community nursing team, and I know of many teams in the country that have access to CuddleBlankets or have their own. And once we become involved with the family, when their child comes home for end-of-life care at home, we would have those conversations with them at a time that feels appropriate. And it's not always a conversation you can have before the child dies, but then it's about sitting down with them and offering that as one option. And it's amazing, actually, the number of families that just aren't aware that that's something that can happen, that actually they can keep their child at home for a few days. Back in the day when I started doing this many years ago, we supported a family with their little girl who was 8 months old, and she remained at home for her whole life. She died at home very peacefully, and she stayed at home until her funeral a week and a half later. And we didn't have this technology then, and it was possible, but this just makes things a little bit smoother and a little bit easier. And it takes away that stress of having to try and keep a room really cold and having to keep windows open, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's something that we offer to all the families that we support. And as I say, some families do want to take advantage of that, some don't. But increasingly, I think families are really happy to hear that they can just remain at home with their child. And more often as well, having that opportunity to take them home, even if it's just for 24 hours, just to have them in their bed one last time before they go to their funeral directors, or they're buried or cremated.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's definitely something that we appreciate that you're offering for families. I know having that extra time to say goodbye means the world to many families. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for providing such a powerful testimony from the point of view of someone who is caring for the families. We appreciate you.
One thing I forgot to mention actually was just that you said that sort of gift of time after the child's died, but it helps ease that transition. And I'll send you the link afterwards if you want to share it with the people that are on the call today. But there's a mum I supported a couple of years ago, and she wrote a beautiful article for the Telegraph newspaper in England. And she kept her daughter at home for 36 hours after she died, and we used a CuddleBlanket. And it's a really beautiful reflection from a parent of how they were able to spend that time with their daughter. Her siblings were in and out of her bedroom, and it all felt completely normal in what was a very sad situation. But it gave them that time to transition and to see those changes, and to observe her skin cooling. And she said at the end of that 36 hours, they knew that, she died. It was the right time to say goodbye. And in fact, they were a Jewish family, so she was buried very quickly. But yeah, it was about that transition time, and giving them that time just for the whole family to see those changes, and to have that sort of physical understanding that their child had actually died, but in a really gentle way at home.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if you could share that, that would be great. I'll make sure we include it in the follow-up email that we send out.
Yeah, no problem at all.
All right. Thank you, Becky. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes, thank you so much, Becky. That was fantastic. And it's really helpful to hear, as well as the CuddleBlanket is a newer product in North America, and has been used more extensively in the UK. So it's great to hear from someone who has more experience using it and with the families and to hear the impact. So that's fantastic. And thank you again for sharing. I will echo more of what Becky said on this slide, just discussing how to support families in children, or sorry, excuse me, in children's hospitals. So used in the PICU and pediatric settings, the CuddleBlanket allows families more time to process the loss, and while maintaining appearance and condition, helping to promote dignity and support memory making. The cooling also offers families the time to travel or facilitate plans to say goodbye in a way that is appropriate for them without feeling rushed. Of course, sometimes families are prepared that the loss is inevitable. In other situations, there can be family members who are not aware, who would like to come from out of town, or more emergency situations where the family would like to travel from out of country, out of state, out of town, out of province, and the CuddleBlanket helps to allow that to happen without the need for extreme rush. The CuddleBlanket can be seamlessly integrated into hospital protocols as an alternative to traditional cooling methods that may be less personal or less comforting. So in the hospice setting, the CuddleBlanket serves as a compassionate tool, again, allowing families precious time. So we have a quote here from Tracy Leonard Warner, who is an executive director at Ryan House, which is one of the children's hospice in the US that owns a cuddle cot. And Tracy says, when a child dies, it is never easy. Ryan House, along with our care partner, Hospice of the Valley, is here for families in Arizona when they face this unimaginable journey. Having a CuddleBlanket allows our families with children and teens the same experiences of those with an infant. More time with their child before the mortuary needs to be called, more time in an environment of support and comfort. Thank you so much again, Tracy, for that, for sharing with us the impact that it's made at Ryan House. And next up, we're so incredibly grateful to have a video from Mom Gabriella Lake Walker, who is mom to Thea, who had the chance to use a CuddleBlanket.
Hi everyone. I'm really sad not to be able to be with you today, but I'm actually on a much needed break for some quality time out with my family. It's our half-term holidays here in the UK, and spending quality time with my family has come to mean a great deal to me over the last few years. Quiet time. But first of all, I just wanted to thank you all for attending today. Child death is not something anyone wants to think about, but some of us have no choice and are forced to confront such tragedy. So to those of you who voluntarily engage in thinking about it and how to support those of us who have no choice make the world of difference. So really and truly, thank you. Back to why quiet family time is so important. I was always someone who was always on the go. We used to spend our breaks surrounded by noise, love and chaos about our friends and family. But 6 years ago, my youngest daughter died just before she was 3. It was both expected and unexpected. You see, Thea had been diagnosed with an incurable disease that we knew would take her life, but we did not know when. My mission had become to pack her life with as many normal, mundane and happy childhood experiences as we could for as long as she was with us. And in 2019, all of that stopped. My world stopped when she started struggling for breath one night. She'd been hospitalized several times before, and we'd been told on many occasions that this would be the end. She always bounced back, but that night was different. One thing we knew that we didn't want was for her to end up tied to a machine and us having to make the awful decision as to whether to switch it off. She didn't like hospital, and whilst we wanted every measure possible to keep her with us, we didn't want her to end up on a ventilator just because. We were lucky in many ways. Here in the UK, we were able to create an advanced care plan with her doctors and the support of the local children's hospice. This process meant we'd gone through all of the different scenarios we might find ourselves in looking after a chronically ill child, so that we could judge on which occasions we were best taking her to hospital, when it was better to manage her at home, or whether to go to the hospice itself, where they had nursing staff on call 24/7. We'd initially been sceptical about involving a children's hospice, We knew them only in the way that you know of an adult's hospice, somewhere that someone goes to manage the end stages of life and death, of illness and death. We'd been told that Thea's disease was incurable, but we'd also been told that she wouldn't die anytime soon, and we had no way of knowing when it would happen. But eventually, with very gentle encouragement from some other people around us, we decided just to go and visit, so we at least knew what our options were. What we actually discovered that children's hospices, here in the UK at least, were in fact places that help children like Thea to live, but they also have the experience and expertise to prepare us for what to expect whenever it might happen. And they were instrumental in helping us to prepare a really good advanced care plan. It was here that we first heard about the CuddleBlanket. We didn't go and look at the little apartment that they had dedicated for the end of life, but they explained it to us. Again, I have to say, I didn't really know what to think when they told us about the CuddleBlanket and that we would be able to stay with Thea after she died and spend time with her if we wished. The one thing about losing a child is that you're generally pretty young yourself. So with any luck, you haven't been around that much death. Certainly not so closely, and certainly not the child. I was too embarrassed to ask much about the etiquette. I didn't want to think about Thea dying anyway, and hopefully it wasn't going to happen anytime soon. I felt rather naive as I wondered whether it was okay to actually be spending time with someone after they have died. We didn't want the but we knew it was there, and what we absolutely did know was that we didn't want anything ruled out. We didn't want the option of regret. We didn't want to say no to anything when we really didn't know if or when or what we would want. So there was something comforting about knowing it was there, and that plenty of other families spent days up to a week in the hospice after their child has died. It kind of made one of those things that we didn't really need to think about. We knew that when the time came, we would have the time to ask the questions and think about how to handle it. We could file it away in the too painful to think about, but all sorted part of our brain, knowing that the hospice staff would just deal with everything and they knew what they were doing. So when the time came, when we made the decision that night to phone the nurse and talk to her about what was happening with Thea, it was gone midnight. We took their advice and we treated as best we could, but nothing was changing, and it didn't seem the kind of thing that going to hospital would help with. In fact, I think we knew deep down that if she went to hospital that night, she would never leave. So we called an ambulance, and as per her advanced care plan, we instructed them to take us to the hospice where we met the nurse. If a hospital transfer was needed, then we could do that from there. Thea was treated at the hospice and seemed to calm her breathing, but only for a few hours. She calmed and then started struggling again, and she died in the early hours of that morning. My husband and I had been on the bed with her all night, while my sister, who had happened to be staying with us anyway during the school holidays to help with our son, stayed at home with him. We ended up falling asleep for a few hours after she died, lying with her on the bed, and then we and the nurses moved her into the bed with a CuddleBlanket. We didn't really know how it worked, but we'd been assured that she could stay in that bed for as long as we needed, and we could spend time with her, or not, just as we chose and felt that was right. It's funny because after she died, all of my qualms about what was normal and what was okay just dissipated. She was still my little girl and I wasn't going anywhere. Thank goodness for the CuddleBlanket, or I actually don't know how I would have managed. There was no way I was leaving her all on her own or letting anyone take her away from me, not on their terms anyway. I knew she'd died. I wasn't in denial, but I wasn't ready to say goodbye. It was a beautiful setup at the hospice. There was a front entrance that led to a little kitchen area and opened out onto a living space with a sofa and TV and double doors onto the garden. And then there was a corridor from the kitchen round the back to a large double bedroom, in which there was a door into Thea's room with the bed and the CuddleBlanket. But it was just like a normal children's bedroom. There was a little CD player, lovely happy covers on the bed, child-friendly wallpaper, and some books and toys. And then there was also a back door through to the living area. So there was access to her room from both sides, but it was totally optional as to whether we went in or not, or for anyone who wanted to come and visit. I'd be lying if I said the next few days weren't lovely. My whole family travelled up from various different parts of the country. Friends came to visit, and we just lived in this little apartment with Thea and her big brother. Some of our friends and family went to say goodbye to Thea, some didn't. But my husband and I came and went. It became normal and essential just to pop in and talk to her, tell her about what was going on, pass on messages, hold her hand, stroke her hair, read her stories. Suddenly what was normal or appropriate didn't matter anymore. And anyway, turns out that all of that is normal and appropriate. I'll admit, part of me felt like I could have stayed forever. Saying goodbye and letting her to go to the funeral home was the hardest thing I've ever done. I knew she'd died, but I liked being able to go and speak with her, see her face, touch her. But when it was time for her to go, although it was hard, it felt like the right time. I was at peace with it. No part of me was resistant. I've read a lot about grief since. There are a lot of things in Thea's life that could have gone better. Care she could have got but didn't. She should have got but didn't. And I'm not okay. I have a lot of trauma, including complex PTSD from some of the things that we've been through, but none caused by her actual death. I have read that one of the most protective risk factors against complicated long-term grief and hardcore flashback level PTSD is a good death. And Thea's death was a good one. It was textbook. We were able to stay with her and say goodbye in our own time, in our own way, and at our own pace. And for that, I will always be grateful.
Wow. So thank you so much to Gabriella for sharing about Thea. That was very honest and impactful story. Again, we're so incredibly grateful that you took the time and opportunity to share with others about how the CuddleBlanket impacted your family. So thank you. Moving on to how to introduce the CuddleBlanket into your setting, just a few quick tips here as to what we recommend. It is ideal to keep one unit available in the PICU, palliative care, or family rooms. And staff training is also very minimal and readily available through our extensive free training resources on flexmort.com. Setup only takes a few moments and the CuddleBlanket itself is very user-friendly. I'm now going to pass everything back to Danielle.
So using the CuddleBlanket for home funerals and green burial farewells. The CuddleBlanket is designed specifically for eco-conscious families, those looking for alternatives to traditional embalming methods. By using the CuddleBlanket, families can comfortably keep their loved one at home for extended periods, again, fostering more intimate farewell experiences. This approach not only reflects a commitment to personal values, but also aligns with environmentally responsible funeral practices, which many families are becoming more aware of. The CuddleBlanket supports sustainable choices by eliminating the need for harmful chemical preservatives and as well as refrigerant gases, which are often used in conventional funeral arrangements. So in using the CuddleBlanket, it facilitates more greener goodbyes, which allows families to honor their loved one while also caring for the planet. Introducing the CuddleBlanket into a funeral home setting, these can be used to offer final viewings, wake services in chapels of rest or in private family rooms within the funeral home. These can be used for green or no embalming packages. This allows families the opportunity to keep their loved one at home for longer to create peaceful and personal space for final goodbyes. It can be used to reduce embalming costs, expand viewing options, and upsell to eco-conscious families. Nowadays, modern bereavement care is changing, and modern families, want choices, and they want to feel like they have a say in what is happening. For end-of-life and death doulas, the CuddleBlanket can be used in place of dry ice and ice packs. This supports the cultural, spiritual, and personal rituals before transfer to a funeral home if necessary, and this allows families to honor traditions. By incorporating it into service packages, you not only offer emotional presence, but also a practical solution that enables families to keep their loved one at home for longer, without the need for ice, chemicals, or urgent removal by the funeral home. The CuddleBlanket can support at-home vigils for either a few hours to a few days, and it gives families more control and space. It also allows you to expand your offerings like multi-day vigil packages, holistic farewell planning, and again, aligning with spiritual and eco-conscious values. So as a death doula, this can position you as a modern full spectrum guide through the death care. It's compassionate and sustainable, and it also respects both your emotional labor and your worth. In some areas, there is an opportunity to charge for service and resource packages to add on. Again, this being for all of North America. Some of the things discussed on the next slide might not be applicable for everybody, but a few options for examples. So the initial cost of the CuddleBlanket is $6,000. You can offer this as a green or natural care package, so it can replace embalming costs, ice packs, and dry ice. It can also be used as holistic family-led care packages, so home viewings, home funerals, extended time at home before the funeral home picks up the body. And it can also be used as an opportunity for a whole end-of-life care package. So death doulas and funeral homes partnering together to provide the continued care across the end-of-life process. That's me. Okay. So thank you guys for joining us. As I mentioned before, we have Will with the UK. Will, I'm going to move you over to a panelist so you can, excuse me, answer any questions that you feel might be necessary.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? Will, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
I'm not sure if you had any Q&A or anything in the chat so far. If not, we are offering the opportunity if anybody wants to ask questions in real time and see if there's anything that you can answer since you are our expert on all things CuddleBlanket. Will does all of the training for the hospices in the UK, so he's very familiar with the setup and takedown and can answer any questions that anyone might have. Do you have the Q&A up, Will? Did it show up?
Got it. Yeah, no open questions.
Perfect. Okay, if anybody has any specific questions, if you want to raise your hand, I think there's an option down at the bottom of the screen where you can raise your hand and we're happy to answer anything. If we don't have questions, that's great as well. Hopefully that means we covered everything that you need to know. Again, we'll be sending out an email, so hopefully that covers any questions that anyone might have. Just gonna check and make sure there's nothing that I'm saying. Thank you for joining us, Will.
That's all right. So we've had one question.
Okay.
How loud is the equipment? I would say it's similar to a sort of having like a desk fan on in a bedroom, maybe a little bit louder than that.
Okay. Thank you. In the chat, Laura asked, are there any funeral directors or funeral home professionals present who are currently using a CuddleBlanket? Not that I'm aware of, just because of this being more of an informational webinar. So if you are interested in connecting with someone, I'm sure we can get you in touch with someone or, provide answers to any questions. Awesome. So Micheline says she's not currently using it, but she has seen it in use. Yes, she has been to many of the exhibitions that we're at and has seen them when we were at NFDA last year, as well as other conferences.
Daniel, you might know the answer to this one better than me. Do you know how many funeral homes in the US currently use a CuddleBlanket or a cuddle cot?
So the CuddleBlanket is new to the US market. So currently we have them at Ryan House, which is a pediatric palliative and care home. And then we also have one at Lurie Children's. As far as cuddle cots, I would say we have more of those in use at funeral homes. Again, the idea of cooling and keeping bodies at home is kind of a new concept in the US. So as death care is becoming more advanced, people are being more open to the idea of keeping a loved one at home or bringing a loved one home, including a baby if they've passed away. This is something that is definitely becoming more popular that we're getting more questions about.
Okay, so in the chat, there is a question from Alexis. Cost could be a challenge, which we do appreciate. At the moment, we don't offer any programs or grants to make them more accessible. Potentially something we could look at, but no guarantees there. I'd have to go away and ask the decision makers about that, but obviously we are covering the cost of import. Delivery is included in the price, so there will be costs involved with that. Laura, does the power unit put out much heat when it's cooling the blanket? Nope. Barely any heat at all is put out because of the thermoelectric cooling. So there's a massive heat sink inside the machine, and that obviously gets rid of any heat inside the unit.
I will tell you that at one exhibit, we had our bowl of chocolate candy next to it and it did not melt. So if that helps, it's very little heat. As far as going back to Alexis, so depending on, where you're working and who you're working with, some hospitals have grant programs within their foundations, so that's an option. As far as what specifically is out there, that's something definitely that you could look into. And we're definitely happy to help from the standpoint of if you do work at a hospital and you have a foundation and you're needing, guidance on how to present this to leadership about the difference that it can make and the importance of it. So if you find a grant and you're looking for support, we're more than happy to help with that. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, McLean, for joining us. We appreciate you. Okay, so my email and Jessica's email are both on this slide. If you do come up with any more questions, or you want some guidance on how the CuddleBlanket might fit into your practice, please send an email to either one of us. We're happy to set up a one-on-one phone call, Zoom, or even demo the product if that's something that you're interested in.
Thank you, everyone.
We will be sending out the recording of this to everybody who registered, and again, we'll be sending out another follow-up email with resources and everything. So thank you guys for joining, and have a great day.